what I want to do is I want to make a short video. It's probably one of our shortest videos, showing you how to do some simple posing for this character, right? Because at this point we've kind of done all of our texturing. I'm back at Lathrop, so my metal map's not there, but you guys saw the video on that. So what I want to do is Bruce wanted to show you guys how to pose, and then what we'll do is our last video we'll kind of come in and see next week, which will just be some basic lighting and rendering, which will be pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy to do in Blender. So I just want to show you guys a little bit of how to pose your crab, right? So really the posing tool, because we're not going to try to rig it, that's a lot more complicated and time consuming. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go to sculpting, because there is a sculpting window, of course. And I'll just go back to studio, kind of turn that on. We can kind of see the texture for it if we want to. Although if you don't want to, you can kind of just have that on. Just kind of see the basics for it while you pose it. But it is in the sculpting menu, right? Sculpting workspace. And what we'll do is we go in here, and you actually see it's part of our sculpting tools. Way down here, there's actually a tool called Pose Brush. So Blender actually has a pose sculpting tool. Now I'm going to go to the, kind of wrench screwdriver. I'm also going to turn symmetry out because we probably want some asymmetry to our pose here. But one of the things you'll notice is by default, this kind of actually tries to set up like these little IK chain bones, right? And if I make my brush bigger, like right brush, remember your brackets, right? The next Enter and P, they kind of look like parentheses but square. And those will actually make your brush size jump up, bigger or smaller. Obviously, you could control radius here, stuff like that, right? But in this case, the bigger the brush, the more bones will affect it. We want the pose brush on, but we also want to go to the wrench and screwdriver because that's kind of brings the properties up for this brush, right? And one of the things you'll see here is it can use topology as a rotation origin. You can even have it use face sets. We're not going to worry about that one right now. When we get to slightly more complicated ones, like our final character at the end of the year, we'll actually explore face sets for that. But for this crab, since it's just a couple of legs, maybe some tendons we want to move a little bit, we're probably going to be fine just using topology. You'll see deformation is set to rotate and twist, which is what we want. But you can actually move and scale and squash and stretch. So you can actually do some neat stuff with this one. But for us, we're just going to kind of use these defaults here. Also, though, you'll see there's something called Pose IK segments. And what's cool about this is as you turn it up, it'll actually give you kind of more bones. So the moment I kind of click, let me make sure the object's selected. That would probably be why. Make sure the body's selected, right? And we're just posing the body, so don't worry about posing anything else like the whole body itself. Just move the legs around. My bad, I didn't have that. There we go. So make sure your actual body's selected. And you'll notice with our brush size, if we turn up those pose IK segments, you'll notice that it actually puts in this kind of little cool IK chain. And what's cool is you can kind of get this little kind of mini IK setup right inside of Blender for posing, right? Now, if you want, you can, of course, turn this back down to 1. And then it just kind of does a bigger kind of one of these. So, so you see how I can kind of just throw these up, and we can kind of just play around with posing a little bit, right? I can make the brush size bigger, and you see how it can kind of allow us to kind of do a full pull here. And you'll see you can kind of maybe set the IK chain to 2. You do have to be a little careful with your brush size, right? Because it'll start to go a little too far into there. But you see you can kind of do some neat stuff with this depending on how many IK chains you want. And what those IK chains really allow you to do is it's kind of creating these little mini bones, right? So you see how there's like these two lines there? Think of those as bones, like a kind of like your forearm bone and your bicep bone, right? And you see as you can move these, you can start to do some quick, simple posing. And of course, it's based on the brush size. So you see how kind of with 2 IK chains, 2 pose IK segments, and a smaller brush size, I can just kind of adjust this guy a little bit, right? So what's cool about this is you see how we can kind of come in here and just do a little bit of posing just with our brushes getting a little bit bigger, smaller, So kind of some neat stuff that you can actually kind of do with this. So you've got some neat kind of posing you can actually do quickly and fairly easily with this pose brush. Like I said before, I could use kind of some of our other sets as well, like face sets, but I didn't want to get too nuts with it. I just wanted to show you guys that you have some ability to kind of do a little bit of posing if you want to, right? And like I said before, you can always set that to like maybe just back to 1 again. and then kind of this whole last thing will just kind of be its own little bone, right? So you can kind of turn the pose IK segments up or down to give you kind of more bone segments, and that'll give you kind of a little bit more direct control over it, right? So it's kind of cool, right? It's kind of neat that you can kind of do these things with this and kind of get some interesting little posing going on here. So remember, the big things to think about are how many IK chains, IK segments you want, right? Pose IK segments, and your brush size. And that'll kind of give you different controls for this. But you'll notice I can kind of give my crab a bit of kind of pose, right? We can kind of adjust them a little bit, right? So that could be kind of a neat thing to do to maybe make some little adjustments to the kind of character's body. Don't adjust the body too much because of the gear and armor. Although technically, we can click on that one, right? So if I go to 4 and I click on that, and then we turn our 5 back on, you'll notice that this will still work here as well. So we can even technically kind of use this to make little adjustments if we want to also. So you'll notice that these this pose brush kind of neat, right? It's kind of cool. It kind of gives you this little mini IK segment setup. And I didn't want to go too nuts with it here, right? Trying to keep it pretty simple for you guys. I don't want you guys going too crazy with it. And like I said, if you really, really wanted to, you could always kind of play with this a little bit there. Or even if you really wanted to, you could play with a little bit of scale translate there, right, to move it. So you can kind of make some of those adjustments if you want to a little bit. So rotate twist is kind of usually the normal one, though, that we kind of get. And that can allow us to make some adjustments. We play with the pose IK segments. But remember, the biggest things are pose IK segments and kind of the size of your brush. And then just kind of, getting a good view so it kind of lines up fairly well with what you want, right? So kind of a neat thing that you can do here to make some cool little adjustments for everything. And if need be, you could always just switch to something like the grab brush and just kind of pull some shape around in and of itself, right? So remember, there is actually a way just to kind of move some shape around just with the grab brush, right? And shift for smooth. But I just want to show you guys that there is actually a sculpting brush called Pose, right? And it can give you the ability to have one IK segment or multiple, and the brush size kind of determines that. And it just allows you to kind of make some cool little adjustments to the pose of your character. Then we can turn that on, and we can kind of see it with all those things. All right. And so I figured that'll be a great place to stop for this video. Like I said, I just wanted this one to be a really simple one for you guys. Just show you that you can pose it. You don't have to go too nuts with the pose, right? It can be really, really simple. Just kind of, particularly with this one, just give it the old college try, or in this case, the old high school try. But I thought it'd be cool to see that, and to see that you could adjust some of the leg angles a little bit to make it a little more dynamic. Thought that'd be kind of cool to see. So that's kind of what I wanted to do there.